Hi, everybody. This is Chloe Hudson with World Peace Projects. Thank you for joining me. So today I wanted to talk a bit about the two-world split. We're going to talk about exopolitics and exopolitics. And I also am going to share some videos, some thoughts around some things that have been coming up, and I'm just going to some info while I'm waiting for people to come into the room. Thanks so much for joining me. So last week was pretty interesting. There was so much going on energetically and in dream time. I feel that many people have been having a lot of influence in dream time in a way that's uncomfortable. We're also going to talk a bit about handling right now. So go ahead and just say hi to me in the chat and let me know everything's good. You can hear me. Please remember to let me know if it starts to buffer. And I'll just kind of keep reminding as we go. Though when you comment, please steer clear of any and all keywords at this point, because YouTube is having a heyday. All right. Hi, Bridget. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get going with my notes. I have a lot to cover here. And the first thing I wanted to talk about, and it's, things happen so quick lately that, I was going to do a video. Hi, Pearl. Hi, Jody. Thank you. Hi, Michael. Hi, Super Kala. I had great intentions to show up for you guys last week, and then the week just got busy, and then all of the current event notes in my experience are already it's already passed me by, I feel like, but it's still very important information. Okay, so a couple people reached out last week after Cosmic Agency posted the video where the being, the alleged being that communicates to her was talking about what the Federation had said. Okay, so if you guys don't know what video I'm talking about, go on over to Cosmic Agency if you want to watch that. It was her second to last video, I believe, and it was a longer one. Okay, so I'll hop right into that first. So a few things with that. I like to reference people. I feel it is very important to reference as best as possible the sources in which you collect your information. After all, they put a lot of time into creating those videos or that content, whatever form it is, and the least that we can do is honor that effort and those expertise or those opinions, what have you. So I tell you guys a lot about different people that I watch, and I know that may expand the people that you watch, and maybe too you see me as a trustful source who's done at least some research, so you know it's not just a bunch of hogwash. Though I want to be really, really clear on everyone, including me, okay, that I reference or I use to gather information. I always use discernment. Just because I pull tidbits from different people and different information sources in different moments in time does not mean it by any means that I completely advocate, that I trust everything they say, that I'm aligned with their position. So please know that, because every single source I have given you, probably, maybe save one, I am very clear on discrepancies, and there's many things that I don't align with and many things that I do. And most of them, I don't really follow the same vein in the way that they perceive. Though at the same time, it's very important for us to know that we can gather information from all places and take what you want, leave the rest. What I'm saying right now doesn't mean that I'm not saying that any of these people are giving you false information consciously or anything like that. I'm just saying that a lot of sources that I utilize, it's it's often half and half. I'm like, that's not so much. I don't resonate with that. Ooh, I like that one. I'll take that. Okay. So we're constantly reading the frequency signatures of information, of beings, of people, because there's tons of overlay. All right. We don't all have the ability to be completely transparent and in the know. We don't necessarily know when certain beings or certain people are handling us or working through us to deliver certain information or certain energies or take certain codes. So we have to learn how to do that for ourselves. Pearl, you say you tried to watch that video. When you say you tried, was it that it upset you so you couldn't watch it? Because the two people that reached out to me, at least one of them were very concerned and upset about the information given on that video. So first thing that comes up for me, and just to do a short little tidbit, the video was explaining that the alleged Taygetan or Pleiadian being went and met with the council, and the council basically said that they're pulling out, they're drawing out, they're redacting their assistance to Earth and humanity, a lot of red tape, ExoPolitics, and the being explained certain agendas of the Federation and the hierarchies from that perspective, or what was offered. And it was basically stating that they're not going to swoop in and save us. Well, I think by now, if any of us are believing that any interdimensional or extraterrestrial beings are going to come save us, needs to wake up and get off of the savior complex template. I dove into this a lot back when I talked about my revelations with the archangels and how I don't perceive them all as on the up and up. Okay. Savior victim complex is a huge issue for humanity, that we perceive that we need to be saved, keeps us in this victimization state. So first and foremost, no matter if you resonate with the work or you do believe that that is a Taygetan being or you don't or whatever, if you feel that you need somebody to come in and save you, you're choosing to be victimized. And that's not going to assist us in regard to graduating the experience of victimization. Okay, so let me put it that way. Now, another discrepancy I want to point out with that specific video, just to use your own discernment, but not everybody might know this, so I'll just point out. It was stated in that video, the being said that humans are not allowed to travel the solar system. So the moon and Mars have both been colonized, including many other planets in our solar system. So that's not accurate by any means to me. We absolutely have civilizations and colonies that have been long-standing on the moon and Mars and other places, which is one big reason that there's such a big push with the SpaceX and Elon Musk and all of this, so that they can actually reveal what's already there and happening, but they'll do it in a way like it's just starting. Okay, so I just want to state that in one way, that we can see that there's some information that may assist, and then there's some information that does not. Okay, now I'm just looking at my notes here. Another thing I want to state that I think is often overlooked. Yeah, Bridget, we are our own heroes. We're awesome. We can do it. Absolutely. And then Pearl, I see you say there's a few channels I watch that watch Cosmic Agency. Yeah, it's too much savior victim. Yes. Okay, so something I wanted to state is I think gets overlooked a lot. Okay, we're a micro expression of the larger all that is, right? So if we look at the way we've structured our governments and our nations on this planet, that's also a micro reflection of the way the solar system is governed, of the way that the galaxies are governed, the way the universe is governed, okay? So there are absolute hierarchies and structures put into place for our entire verse that can be in certain ways disseminated through this inverse planet experience, okay? So there's plenty of hierarchies and different groupings and councils that, you know, have their hand in the pie and have certain controllings, dominions, what have you. It doesn't mean that they're all on the up and up or they're all not, because there is a slew of both, all right? Though there's certainly certain stipulations. It's not the way the New Age brings through some really unfortunate information. And mind you, if we're not aware of this, please remember or go back and do your research. You know, the New Age, and I just want to say it the way I wrote it, the New Age movement is a propaganda trap that was started by the Illuminati, all right? So the way in which the love and light and frequential experience is presented through the New Age is a trap system. And it's one that does very well to overlay truths with fallacies and keep in a big way people that truly desire to know more and do for self in very sovereign ways. It keeps them in a big way from diving into their shadow work, because it tends to have this everything is love and light and just look towards the frequency, only focus on the good and all of that. Well, that's a huge issue in my opinion, because while we understand that we're creator beings and that we bring in and anchor our frequency, it's our responsibility to up-level our frequency and command our reality as much as we can as an individualized representation of the creator source, all that is, all the while understanding that we have chosen to opt into certain soul groupings, which means certain collective agreements that can supersede our individual personalized preference. Once we have incarnated, that we have to understand all of this while being very, very clear on the basic principle that anything that is hidden must be revealed in order for one to have full command. So this doesn't just include, you know, all of the secret agendas by the controller beings. This absolutely is about self and doing the shadow work, right? So as I've been saying for a long time, it's way past go time to double down on our shadow work. We have to clear the muck, get in there as much as you're comfortable. Let me redact that. It's uncomfortable. It's meant to be uncomfortable. Shadow work, if you're doing it right, is very uncomfortable, usually extremely painful. Now, I'm not saying to go put yourself in a state of crisis, you know, healing crisis, or dive into another dark night of the soul. Though if that happens, more power to you. You know, I am not one that approaches shadow work lightly. It may be better for you to do that, to each their own. But I like to dive in and get as much done, maybe to the fault of going through too much, you know. I have to be very careful not to reinvoke too much trauma, because there's a fine balance of integration. We don't have to know all of it, but we need to get the general gist of what's embedded inside of our consciousness beyond even our human. And if we don't do that work, we cannot be sovereign. It's just impossible. Okay. So if you are super proactive on your spirituality and frequential understanding and learning these truths, that's fabulous. But if you're not doing your own personal shadow work of uplayering your hidden belief systems and limited emotions and, you know, karmic retribution from other timelines, then I'm telling you, you're behind. Catch up. You got to get in there and do mass shadow work in order to hold your sovereignty, to command your protections, to know what's what, to discern. Because as all of this is, even in the title of this video, it's about reading the codes. It's about reading the frequency signatures. I'm still learning to do this, right? There's always learning curve. I feel like I'm pretty good at it, but I have tons to learn. I'm off point plenty. And I'm very, very clear on the more I do my shadow work, the better I can access the frequency signatures and have clarity. So I'm going to read some. Okay, Amanda says it's like false belief systems. Absolutely. We have to understand what's the difference between our belief systems, but also truth is perceptive. Truth changes and fluctuates constantly depending on which viewpoint we're approaching it from. Depending on which way you're going to look at it and experience it, it can fluctuate. Bridget says, my guides have been with me always, helpful and wise. They love me unconditionally. They were saving me as my equal friends. This is how I discern positive or negative wisdom. That's fabulous. If you're clear as day that your guidance is true and clean, I think that's wonderful, Bridget. And that I think is also a rarity, because I have had the experience of registering many times that what I perceive to believe is true guidance, and maybe this will lead me into my next topic, was not. Was guidance, but it wasn't the guidance that is something that I want to be experiencing. And so I'll go ahead and use that to lead into understanding certain information that's coming through. Okay, so a lot of people receive what they, and Bridget, please don't perceive that I'm saying that this is what's happening to you. It's just reminiscent of what's happened to me. So I'm going to go ahead, because I've already written this down, to talk about the importance of that discernment, because it's very important to know and discern what is spirit, what is your true guidance, and what is not. And I find that to be a very difficult task for many, many reasons. Probably main reason is because we haven't done enough shadow work to clear out. Another is perceiving frequency signature. Another is because it's coming to self, inside self. So it's easy to perceive that, especially when one begins to telepathically communicate or do, their version of channeling or psychic work. We want to believe that what we're receiving is true and clean and good. So this leads me into understanding that a lot of people are handled. They're given information in a way that is to offer and deliver it to their audience, the masses, whatever. Most of this information is actually not necessarily coming, directly from interdimensional extraterrestrial beings. Meta beings, however you want to say it, otherworldly, whatnot. That may be the like hierarchy root of it, though a lot of information comes in through psyop, through covert programming, and people that have long ago discovered how to access via your electromagnetic frequency and give in false telepathic communication, offer holographic inserts, you name it, okay? So a lot of this can be offered up and plated up in a way where the receiver perceives this to be good guidance, and they deliver it because they have a wholehearted desire to assist and support and know truth in all of this. So that's important to look at. And not all, but many, I'll say platforms, right, that are really big, they've been allowed to become big. It's been permitted. It doesn't mean, again, that they know this, though. As we've all seen with what's going on right now with YouTube and Vimeo and Google, the huge amount of handling right now and the complete just slap in the face abolishment of freedom of speech right now is a wonderful example of how it's up to them if you're going to get viewed or not, in whatever way that is. Okay, so even when it concerns bringing through truth and perspectives that one might say, well, wait a minute, that seems counter to the information that they may want out there. If, why would they be allowed to have this big platform and this huge reach if they're bringing information that seems to go against what their ultimate agenda is? Truth must be revealed. It's all exposed. It's all shown in different ways. It's up to us to decode it. It's a part of the game. They need to give the information in order to kind of follow the rules in a way. It's just how it goes. It comes through many, many different forums. It comes through many people, ways like this. So be mindful of that, because many people, including me, it probably still happens. It absolutely has happened in the past where I brought through information in a way where, man, I was just so dedicated to that being on point and truth, and I realized it was handled. So always use discernment. And if we haven't done our shadow work, then we can't be really, really clear that that's happening, because we've been handled since day one. Okay, next point. We opted into this inverse reality. We opted into the inverse matrix in many, many ways. So we're not going to fix it from the inside out. We're going to transcend. We're not here to change this whole game, right? We're here to transcend it. We're here to integrate it so that we don't need it anymore and we continue on. Ivo, please be careful with your words. I totally agree with what you're saying, but again, we have to be careful with the words that might get flagged. Okay, and yes, I can't read it out loud, your comment, but yeah, AI is a huge problem right now. So. And it's interesting, that grouping that you just mentioned, I've been talking a lot about. Lauda and I have been talking about that. So let's bring that to my next point, okay? What Ivo just said in the comments, I'm going to go ahead and post this video. And I'm going to ask you guys, to watch. If you haven't already watched it on your own time. And I would like to ask you, here's case study. Here's some homework, guys. This video, this person has a pretty big platform, but suddenly has blown up, right? Because of his affiliations with somebody who I really enjoy and got taken off of YouTube, which is shocking. The beginning of the end, right? So besides the blatant word porn in this video and the patriotic energy, tell me if you catch the giveaway. Tell me in that video, it's like a 3.5-minute video, there is a dead giveaway to the underlying agenda, very much aligned with what Ivo just said. That is very telling, because this video, this person has also created a platform that gives an option, an alternative away from this type of censorship, right? Because it's pretty clear that very soon we're not going to be able to say much on this platform. It's, for those of us who want truth, it's just going to be for me, it'll be a way to reach you guys and be like, hey, hop over to this platform, or hopefully bring in more reach. But I can't speak my truth anymore right now without being censored. I just watched a hilarious video where somebody's trying to code the words, and it's so ridiculous at what has to happen now, right? But anyway, so the video I just posted, take a peek at that and tell me if you can catch the giveaway in it. They always show it, right? It might be encoded. Now, this person has created a platform that offers non-censored anyone to post their stuff and not have to worry about the freedom of speech being taken away from them. But here's my warning to this, okay? So as Vimeo and YouTube and Google's and all of this start really seeding out any of us that they know don't align with their censorship and their China Xinhua takeover, needs somewhere else to go. Okay, so this person is created somewhere else to go. Now beware, when you go somewhere else, those platforms are also going to be handled in the way where they want to collect us and have us in somewhere else where we feel that we're giving our truths and we're able to speak freely, finally, thank goodness. And all the while, we're still being watched, our content is still being, studied, information codes extracted. They know who we are, what we're up to in a different way that the herds have come together. Okay, so that's my statement on that. Okay, so let me get back to some of y'all's comments real quick. Okay, Amanda says, notice everyone in our life is a reflection of our consciousness, positive and negative, and outer mirror of our inner dynamic struggles, successes. Yes, absolutely. Whatever you're dealing with in your being is what you're going to see on the outside. Now, it also isn't just what you're going to see on the outside. It's the way in which you're going to perceive what you see on the outside, okay? And, Amanda, that brings me to a point I want to reiterate about we're doing a lot right now to learn to integrate the polarity, not be so judgmental in regard to what we perceive as good and bad and devaluing that, because ultimately we are all of it. Okay, we've opted into this, we've chosen this. We have to take responsibility for our experience as creator beings of creating the dark as well. We've all played roles in this. We've all opted in to play this game and to interact. And, once there is and this happens on such a profound level that it won't happen in this inverse matrix. We'll transcend out of it. Though ultimately, in regard to the expanding and integrating back into source is the integration that you are the all that is, that all play a role, that it's all one and the same, right? Now that happens on a much higher level. It's not necessarily going to happen in this density because this density is meant to be ruled by polarity. Once you access that completely, you transcend. You access and integrate into higher density energies and understandings, which brings us to the two-world split. So a lot of us have known about the topic of the two-world split for a long time, okay? Especially in the New Age, a lot of information which for many people, back when they learned of this, if it was years ago, it was difficult to perceive how this was going to happen, right? And there was like, it's going to be different densities, but there's two worlds, and there will come a shift where now suddenly we access another world. We're not quite sure how that's going to happen, but we'll perceive it in this way. Well, it's becoming very apparent right now in a very physical way. So if we look at just, right now with our perspectives, now I've stopped talking about the mind poison, right? And that whole thing, because at this point, while it's amazing how much of the world still believes that, it's old news to me. And I'm assuming it's old news to y'all. And not that we can even talk about it anyway on this censored platform, but I don't even bring it up because we clarified so thoroughly with so many different ways, with so many different platforms that it's a whole propaganda, a whole scamdemic that is is a facade to overlay us into the new suppressor controller agendas, right? I say new, but new to many people who are registering that something's going on. Okay, so there's an obvious two-world split happening. There's those that have bought into that, and those of us that are like, what? Wake up, you know? So it's really, really physically apparent right now, which is very interesting because that is quite a juxtaposition to how it was, for me at least, presented initially years and years ago. So we're already seeing that happening. We're already able to access both at the same time and see very clearly how the densities are so completely different, okay? All right, I'll get back to a couple comments here. I don't want you guys to say too much and it gets away from me. Pearl says, if a person refuses to look at their inner negativity, they can never work through it. Love and light is often a repression mechanism. Absolutely. And there's also plenty of, subconscious experiences and trauma that we don't have a clue are there. Not a clue. I mean, just in the last, I've been, this is just me. I've been doing this work for 15 years, and it's my passion. I'm dedicated to it. I love it. And just in the last year, I have learned some things about self that were so hidden. They completely transformed my life. Many of you have seen that, if you've been following me for more than a year, you've seen I've gone through a huge transformation. And it's stuff I haven't even really started to talk to you guys about because I have to take care of how to present it, unfortunately. And though it will be coming forward more and more to be presented, and it shocked me. It floored me. It changed my life forevermore. And I'm telling you, I have been dedicated to shadow work for 15 years straight. And I just now had this revelation of things that have basically just opened up a Pandora's box where I am now clear that I don't know much. Like I'm just moving. It's like I've just gone down into the rabbit hole, and I know now that there's this whole new rabbit hole with this whole new expanse of information that I'm just barely learning. And to me, that's profound because of how much time and discipline and dedication. And I'm just always focused on this stuff. I've just always been thinking like most of you guys, when we think different now, this is just how we think. It's always in our energetics. So, that's my little case in point about there's nonstop shadow work to be done. That's just the way the design is made to be. Okay. Okay, let's scroll through. Love light shining. Curious why the angry people aren't tearing down the blah blah towers. Oh, I don't know. But I really hope that they don't, because I think that there's going to be, again, as we've talked about before, people going tyrannical and kind of anarchy in a way where there's destruction of property and things like this is going to be the validation that controllers want to bring in a strong arm. Okay, so will you guys give me a thumbs up? That really helps me. I've learned that YouTube basically does something like 125 times less exposure if you're a smaller channel than if you're a bigger one. They don't give you get 125 times more exposure as a bigger channel, which is really interesting. Okay, so I just want to get back to some points. Now, this was a while ago. This has already been a week and a half or so, but I found this very interesting. I just want to mention this for a second. Okay, so maybe this was actually 2 weeks ago. Magenta Pixie put out a video where she was talking about, thanks Debbie, she was talking about a dream that came in outside of the collective she usually channels, which I found is interesting because of the information that was given. And she says in that dream that these beautiful beings came to her and told her that the Draco are coming, but don't worry, these beings and others are here to assist and support. Now, and then in the video, she says that the beings she channels, never told her about the Draco before. Now, I was floored when I heard this. To me to hear that she's never heard of the Drac was shocking. And then I started reading the comments from the day I read it, and nobody in those comments were commenting in a way that I perceived they understood what that means, basically. And so the Drac are some nasty beings, okay? Now, they've been here. They've always been here. Lauda and I have talked about this a lot. They've been in and out, and they've had a huge influence on humanity for a very, very long time, way before this round of Earth, okay? And they've been in and out. They like to come in on the backs of comets. So they usually, when the primes come in, the primes are these white-winged Dracs. There's a definitive hierarchy of the Drac. So when they bring in their motherships, they tend to pull in through the backs of the comets and the tail of the comets. And I'm just forgetting the name of the comet that the one that Haley bought, right? Am I saying it right? That brought in they trailed in a mothership with that one. Okay, so I hear about this and I go into guidance, and my guides say they'll be here in 9 days from that point. Okay, now I look on the calendar. 9 days from that date was the new moon that we had that represented devastation. Now, what was interesting about that is right around when my guidance said that they were going to come in is also the time when the Cosmic Agency video was released that the council, the Federation, said that they were leaving and they were making all these decisions, which is interesting because the Drac have a very strong arm in what's happening right now, big time. The Dracs, the Borgs, they are playing a huge role in what is actually puppeting the human controllers. So anyway, I just wanted to address that because that timeline for me validated and coincided with what seemed to be many decisions made from the hierarchy of the federations and the councils and all of this around what's going on. And it's important to talk about this because especially in the new age, people have been entrained to believe, from my perspective of how I experienced being totally immersed in the new age for many, many years, I perceived that, the Andromedans, the Lyrans, the Pleiadians, the Sirians, the Arcturians are all on the up and up. So, but the reality is all of those beings, including Zeta, Borg, Anu, Nibirians, the Fallens, the Tall Whites, the Orions, the Procyons, tons and tons and tons and tons of beings, right? There's so many. The Maitre, many of them are corrupt. Many of them are regressive. And there has been mass colonization that's happened through our solar system. The Pleiadians are a grouping that were used in a big way around handling and mind control programming. Probably Alexandra just barely dips into this. I wish she would make a full video on it because I love her research. I think she's phenomenal. She talks about I'm not saying the book, The Pleiadian Agenda, okay? I'm not talking about the book by, I think Barbara Hand Clow wrote that one, though that's a very interesting book to realize this. But the actual Pleiadian project, Pleiadian Agenda, where the human controller beings used and pushed the belief that these star seeds and light workers are from the Pleiades, and they're from Alcyone, and their higher self is Pleiadian, was a huge component in mind control faction, in the programming of the New Age. Okay, now there are Pleiadians. Obviously, there's the Pleiades, right? We know this. There's the 7 sister stars, and then the sun Alcyone, and we also need to understand that a lot of the Pleiades have been colonized by the Anunnaki. Okay, and for anybody who followed channeling from back in like the 90s, Barbara Marciniak is a great example of this. You can see a very clear delineation and progression in the shift in her channeling, where it was seemingly clean, and then it did a quick shift, and it started becoming pro-Anu, which was interesting in a subtle way. And there was tons of interference and hacking. And I perceive at that time, there was a shift in the alliances with the Nibiruan beings, kind of going into agreements and alliance to back away from the tyranny, and then with redacting again certain groupings, just certain Pleiadian, Nibiruan DNA bloodline groupings, okay? Because there's been infiltration and colonization throughout our entire solar system. The Pleiadians say in all of, like, especially the Pleiadian agenda, Barbara Marciniak's books, they ask you in the beginning of the book, invite us in, call us in. They're asking you, agree to let us come in. They know what's up. In those books, they're saying, they even say, don't trust us. We're going to tell you some stories. It's up to you to discern what's what, right? We like to play tricks. They tell you straight up, okay? And so here we go with discernment of frequency and understanding. What is actual Pleiadian beings? What's their alignment? What's their affiliation and alliance and fealty? Are they actually Pleiadian beings, or is this controller beings with psyop that is telepathically imposing information, posing as Pleiadian? And I'm just using this one grouping and one experience of that. So that's really important, because I'm, like right now, Love Light's saying this is blowing my mind. Holy crap. There may be some of you who perceive your higher self to be Pleiadian. It was the go-to. So I'm just going to invite you to step back and double check that information. I'm not saying you're not, and so it just comes in many, many forms, with a lot of handling information. Okay. There are lots of beings in all of these different star nations and planets that are not beings that you want to be affiliated with, and there are lots that are. Just like on Earth, we've got a slew of everything and all in between. So get clear on that. They're not meant to be our saviors, right? We need to get really disseminating in our sovereignty and what agreements we're making. I'm going to take one moment here to go back to channeling. I did a video on this, and I actually have a full class that I'll be putting out on this, but I just want to reiterate about channeling. Many of you know that I channeled diligently, religiously for 15 years. I still can channel, and I still do it in certain ways, but I have completely withdrawn in a huge way from channeling, because I have found out firsthand how extremely dangerous it is. Okay. I have repercussions of channeling on so many different levels from all of my bodies, including my physical body, my sexual, my mental, emotional, psychological, energetic, all because I made full agreements around channeling. And I am a very, very proficient channeler. Man, I was wide open and naive as hell. I'm like, hey, let me channel everything and anything, Sure, I'm just making an agreement to allow you to communicate. That's all that's happening. Oh my Lord. I tell you what. So Lauda had a heyday with that one, actually, when we talked about it. Channeling is a form of possession. When you allow any consciousness, any AI, any controller beings, and remember, I'm telling you, a lot of it is that. Because the closest frequency that you can access is 4D. 4D is the realm of this stuff. We also channel our own spirit. We channel our own energy, okay? But the word channeling is an umbrella term that's been used in metaphysics and spirituality in the New Age that I don't perceive most people really are clear on the difference. There's a huge difference between telepathy and channeling and all of the clairs in between. Channeling is different because, when telepathic communication is our innate, born given form of communication, all species do it. We're taught out of it. We're trained out of it. It's a very healthy, wonderful way to communicate. And, I know this is not all that's going on, but I'm going to say it in a crude way just to give us, understanding or imagery. It's like you're going to communicate without verbalizing your words, okay, or using sign language. You're having a relay. There's an exchange of information while still commanding your own personal space. Channeling is this person agreeing to be an open vessel for that consciousness or energy or entity or AI or whatever the hell it is, because most of the time you're not clear on what you're actually channeling. I'm sorry, it's just my experience of being a full-time channeler for 15 years. You allow it to come in, and the best channelers have learned to step out of their person. You actually pull your consciousness out of your person as much as possible and allow them to come through. And when you do that, you better believe that you're not only agreeing to them communicating through you. When you agree to them coming in, man, oh man, you're agreeing to let them access sexual body, mental body, physical body, your codes, DNA, everything and anything. It's a slew. And then they start, they can connect to any other beings that they're connected to. So just take care. You don't need to channel it if you're not sure. You don't need to channel it all. You can telepathically communicate. You can view it with your clear abilities. You can synthesize it. You can do a bajillion different things that allow it to come in and give it full reign of all that you are without having a clue of what it's doing. So I just want to clarify that. Now, that being said, and I'm very passionate about this because I have repercussions from that, that I would go back in a split second and change. So though I still do channel my own spirit, it's still easier for me to channel. I'll channel the cat. I telepathically communicate with the cat, but it's easier. It's lazy of me because let's say in a session, somebody calls in, and now these days I really only do it with animals or plants because they're safer to me. But it's me being lazy. If a client calls in, this happened last couple weeks ago, a client called in and she's about to put her cat under. She's concerned about euthanizing. The cat's in a lot of pain. She wants to talk to the cat and understand what's going on. And it takes me more energy to third person relay what the cat is saying. So I'll just let the cat communicate directly. Now that's channeling. And I know what I'm doing. And I know that doing that also allows any energies that the cat has in their field come into my field. But I still do that basically because I'm being lazy, okay? But I don't perceive it to be wise of me to be doing it. Okay, let me get to some comments. Bridget says, my belief is Cryon is a place of communication. Many loved ones can speak from there. I do love Cryon. Bridget, I never aligned with Cryon. I never not that anything was off in the information, but there was something about Cryon, and there's certain beings, right? Just different resonances that never grabbed me. And I am aware that people love Cryon. And I'm not saying, I'm not speaking on who's not on the up and up or what. I'm just saying, this is my personal experience. Debbie says, that's why it's important to set your intentions on who or what you're willing to allow to channel through you. Sure, Debbie, that's true. But if you haven't done your shadow work and you don't actually command and own your sovereignty, even though you're saying you do, you're not going to be able to stop these beings from coming in, because most of us don't have the ability to perceive and understand exactly what's happening. We're just trusting on blind faith. So I appreciate what you're saying, and you better believe I did that every time, but by no means does that ensure your protection. Unless you are just sovereign through and through, and even then, you need to know how to see the beings that are trying to sneak in and get by. Because there's more reasons, I'm not going to go into it. I did a whole video on it, but there's a lot more than what I just brought up around it, though I digress. Okay. Amanda, I watched a tarot reader and she was accurate, and then a week later saw a serpent entity in her, but it makes sense because she did not invoke the Most High to direct her. Again, yes, and we can, if we haven't done the work, we're not necessarily able to command our sovereignty and be clear through and through. It's just the way it is. Again, I'll go back to the perspective that what the best conscious beings, people, humans, are 95% subconscious. Their psyche is ruling the game, right? That's 5% that you're conscious. Most are 99. All of that is still susceptible and out of your grasp of full sovereignty. So, and I don't say this to deflate or bring us down or scare us, but that's where the power is. It's in knowing that in order to command and be on the up and up, we have to grab and command ourselves by revealing the unconscious, the unknown, and digging. We opted into this inverse matrix because it gives us a massive boost on our progression and our learning. Doesn't mean it's easy or fun necessarily. But we know that because of this free will template, we learn through repetition, which is a really quick way to learn in the grand scheme of things. Okay. Pearl says, I will read some channeled material. I will not channel myself or conscious, and I'll allow such contact. Yeah. School grouping says, Amanda says she was open to anyone or anything. Yeah, Amanda, and that is really dangerous. Exactly. And so now you see the entity in her. Is she going to be able to, does she know to get it out? It's like, now, great. It's like when you say that, I see it's like now she's this nice little den, right? The serpent gets to just coil up and live in her now. Soul Schooling Group says, what about aligning with your high self and being the lead of your will versus letting spirit source take charge? Important, please. It's interesting because I prefer to allow spirit to command me. I have many, many higher selves. So again, here's another thing with this. The way I perceive higher self is any aspect of your soul, which there are many, that is of a higher density than you, right? So we say higher self, and we might perceive that to be a very benevolent being, but I've got plenty of higher selves that are higher densities that aren't on the up and up, and I don't want them rolling the roost. I've got some that I do want to take their guidance from. But again, New Age teaches that higher self is safe. Just because somebody has more awareness than you doesn't mean that they have your back, right? Or have your best interest. If we perceive, as I perceive, that spirit is the commanding ultimate all that is, then I'd much rather just do that through and through without taking any chances. Because within the scope of spirit, if I'm accessing source as is pure divine sovereign energy that I fully trust and am utilizing to command my truth. And if I have the ability to truly command my sovereignty and anchor that in a way where it can't be penetrated, then, if other aspects of me are aligned that thoroughly with spirit, then they'll be able to come through and I can connect with them. So, that's just how I do it. Okay, so Ivo says, I think if anyone wants to channel, they should rather first look into teachings with like Reiki and other healing modalities before getting into something like channeling. Well, that's a great point, Ivo, because, you can also channel energy. It's not just channeling through spoken word. So any channeling, we need to take care. Channeling is just a word for moving something through, right? That's all it is. Channeling is a catch-all phrase that's about letting whatever it is that you're channeling, it's an action, to come through. Doesn't matter if it's energy, doesn't matter if it's words, doesn't matter, people are channeling music and art all the time through their spirit and their consciousness, and that's fabulous. So there's many, many ways to do it. But all of it needs to be taken care, all of it, because no matter what you're channeling, you're allowing it to come through and access your field. Fire Phoenix says, I tried channeling and couldn't channel anything. Hey, Fire Phoenix, that's a good point. So you might have taken that as a bummer with your like slant face that you posted. But another thing is, sometimes your spirit is going to protect you from accessing certain things that aren't safe for you or going to serve you. You might not be aware that that's what's best for you, and you might take that as you just don't have access. But it could very well be that's a fabulous protection mechanism. And I've had that happen in many ways with different things before. For example, I've accidentally deleted videos or something, or parts of videos, energy came through, or something that you guys might have seen by now on me is, especially in the last several months, my aspects are starting to come out. So you can see, my face morph a little bit. And so there was the end of a video that I did. It was actually one with Lauda. She actually deleted the end clip. And we both recorded the live, and I still need to post the replay of that live. But at the very end, she says, I didn't get to see it. She says I totally morphed. And my live, as soon as we ended, I accidentally deleted it immediately. And I was so bummed. I thought it was like my sabotage aspect. But then later she went to edit. She's like, whoa, you totally morphed. She says, I deleted that out. People aren't ready for that. And I was like, I wonder if the reason I accidentally deleted my videos is more of a protection mechanism. So anyway, there's that. Okay, I'm going to get back to my notes because we're almost at an hour. Something that came up last week that was showing a lot. So that I had a session with a client, and in the session, we went to the Borg fields. We went to where the physical bodies are held in the Borg realms, like in the Matrix, where you see where they've got the tubes in them. And I had to, whatever we were doing in the healing, it was like a part of clearing her body there. And then 2 days later, I had a session with one of my clients who is an autistic boy. He's 7 years old. I love working with him. So his mom calls me up, who she's a dear friend, and she's a psychotherapist. And I'll talk to her while we tune into him. And so we'll check in with him and let him guide, because obviously he's autistic. He's super clear. And in one part of the healing, he took me to the Borg fields. And it was really interesting because he showed me So he took me to what I perceived to be his body in the Borg. I'm just going to call them the fields. And then he showed me how when his consciousness inserts back into this matrix, there was a little plasma kidney-shaped AI, I'm supposing, that had like a black, it looked like a fly on the back of it with wings, which was what seemed to be powering it, like the mechanism that made it fly. And then this kidney-shaped plasmatic AI inserted into his consciousness with him. And then the AI bot, I guess I'll call it, pulled out this like, it looked like a flat CD case where there was these very small little CDs stacked up on a vertical. And they were small, they were like this size. And then one CD would come up, and then there was a laser that would then inscript into the CD whatever codes that they were extracting out of his consciousness. Because just like, what's happening with computers with algorithms, and they're reading the algorithms, ultimately that's what the algorithms are. It's to read our code to understand the way in which our emotional bodies, because the big thing is our emotions. Many of these regressive races, they don't have emotional bodies, right? So they have to study it, they have to learn it. So they're encoding and laser encrypting into the CDs and gathering the information and then taking it back. It was really, really interesting. And then a couple times that week, more talk around the Borg started coming up. So I found that really interesting. And I talked with Lauda about it a few days after, because for me, I initially perceived it as there's more activity going on with the Borg. And she was saying, well, it's not necessarily that there's more activity, there may be, but it's also because we have more access now. We can see it more. So I had sight into that which is happening, which, for my own personal being, assists me more and more to get that much more clear on this as the holographic insert. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was very interesting in case you guys have had any of your experiences with accessing or seeing your Borg experiences. Okay, so, and I also wanted to bring that up because what I have been seeing a lot more, and again, I perceived it as there's more activity. Loud is saying, well, we're just seeing it more. I think maybe it's both. A lot of times lately, especially last week, there was a lot going on last week, guys. There's a lot of handling in dream time as well. Especially in the beginning of the week, if you guys had any experiences, we had really weird dreams. There was tons of handling in the 4D in dream time. Though a lot of what I've been seeing more in session is I'll see the plug, right? Or I'll see the like wire network or things like that. So at least for how I'm accessing that realm has become more apparent to me. Okay, so let's see, what else did I want to talk about? Oh, okay, so here's another thing I wanted to talk about. One thing that's really very important to understand that I think a lot of us know, but now more than ever has this become something that is used against us. I invite all of us to start to dissolve our fear of death. This right now more than ever is used to handle and control us so completely. If we're scared of dying, then we can be completely handled. We can be completely steered. We can be navigated in all sorts of ways. Now, I know to many of the populace, me saying that probably sounds ridiculous. It's probably like, of course I'm scared to die. What do you mean? I'm human and this is what I have, is this life. Though people like us, we understand that we are omnipotent. We are the all that is. We exist beyond this space, and we're here for our experience, which is ultimately fleeting. And for me, I know when I release this corporeal body that I'm going to access plenty of phenomenal wonderment. Now, I surely hope that my gusto doesn't hop me back into another timeline really quickly in certain ways where I'm back at work. Though I feel more than the average Joe that I've released my fear of death. Now, I'm willing to bet I'm going to get scared if somebody comes up and threatens my life, and I'll go into fight or flight. And ultimately, I'm going to continue to work to release that, because what we're seeing very, very clearly is mass handling around fear of life and death. Even in, these groups where we have more awareness than many of what's going on, there's also still in our own way this fear. So however that is for you, I invite you to work to release it, because ultimately we're controlled by it. Okay. And that palpable fear, not only do they lose shit, right? It has the propensity to steer us to make decisions that are maybe not the wisest in that moment, because we're playing off of fear, especially when they push the fear button around your death very imminently, in a very acute way, right? Some kind of like Armageddon situation or things like this. So I'm just going to leave that one there, but I wanted to state that because it's very, very important to look at. You guys are commenting on Dreamtime. Let me note this. Thank you, Chloe. I've learned more here today than ever before. Absolutely divine. Thank goodness you are here. So much love and appreciation. Namaste. Thank you, Love Light. I appreciate that. I feel like I missed a comment about the dreams. Okay, I don't see it. Sorry, guys. These comments go kind of quick. Rochelle, you say, I cannot channel deliberately, but if needed and when needed, it does happen. So I noticed your LMT. I just want to make a note of that. I was a massage therapist for 8 years before I went full-time into this work. I was still doing this work, but I wasn't full-time. And what would happen a lot, especially right when you're touching a person, you're accessing their energetics. So you're tapping into their frequency so completely. You might even be seeing what beings are around them or things like that. And I would have experiences, and I'm going to say it in a fun way, but I mean, I'm sure that to take care, because especially if that's when you're accessing and something wants to channel through you, is when you're touching another person. Be careful, right? Because again, that's their energetics. But I used to work as a massage therapist. It's common that you maybe juggle many different spas. So you like freelance for different spas and you have your own practice as well. Well, when I work at a spa, you obviously you represent their company. Just like any job, you're a representative of the company. And so I do massage, and all the freaking time, beings, people, loved ones that had crossed over would come in. I need to give them a message, please. And I'm like, no, you're going to get me fired, And I would tell it, and they just, oh, please, it's so important. It would, and they'd plea and beg. And I'd be like, look, I can appreciate that you've crossed. And I know that you would love to communicate with this human right now, but I can't guarantee that this human's not going to freak out when they hear that and go complain and get me fired. It's just not worth it. And that would happen all the time with massage. So, Rochelle, if you're experiencing anything like that, I just remember having to put a hard foot down on like, I get that you want to come through and they're in a relaxed state, but it's not worth my job. Nor do I know it's going to assist them, even though that's that person's desire, that soul's desire doesn't mean that's best for the human. You say that is possible, but I shield and only accept certain connections to show me the energy fields, but I've learned to block the others. Yeah, it's so big, right? Learning to block was huge. That's, I'm always intrigued by people that are very, very grounded, because I was total opposite. I was wide open and naive and totally ungrounded. And I had to learn the hard way around boundaries and stuff like that. But a lot of people they're just grounded. They've got great boundaries. They know how to command the energetics. It might be more difficult for them to access the energy initially because they're more anchored on earth. And then that's their challenge, is to open up to the energetics. I was reversed, still am. But okay, Pearl says, thank you. I have okay, Pearl's commenting to somebody else. All right, so I want to get back to my points real quick, guys. So let me just see. Oh, one thing I wanted to say just on my own accord, I think I'm going to save a couple of these points for another time. But I also want to invite you guys, last time we talked about being proactive and doing something, right? So what is it that you're doing right now in your life that is assisting and helping to access more truth, to support the masses, not just gathering information, but what are some proactive things that you're doing in order to assist? So a couple that I wanted to point out, and again, to each their own, this is just where I'm at. I just the other day, I got so fed up with Netflix. So I had a subscription in Netflix, and I went on last week or whatever, and they flashed a promo of, oh my God, it was like the pro agenda thing. They flashed Bill Gates. They had this whole thing, this like pro-vax, whatever. And I was just like, that's it. Because Netflix and a lot of these are mass handling, right? Everything that you're being shown is the predictive programming that they want you to watch, that anchors into your consciousness the timeline that they want to play out and the way they want it to play out, so it assists them. But when they pushed that one, I immediately I wrote them. I canceled, and I said, I literally said, I'm canceling because you're pushing this, words I can't say here. You're pushing this agenda and you have sold your souls, cancel. Another thing I'm also doing, which I will share soon enough with you guys, and this might be through my paid subscription plan because I'm doing a lot of research around it, is the different platforms in which we can assist ourselves to have encryption and opt out of this type of stuff where we can share, but only to a certain extent. Otherwise, we're going to get filtered and we're going to get trapped in all of this. Notice that as I just talked about the algorithms, not only are our souls being sold through the data farming, data mining, they're selling all of our information constantly. I'm constantly opting out of trying to opt out. It takes more energy to try to opt out than it ever does to opt in. They make it really complex. So all of the different sites in which data mine and data farm, that's huge, because not only is it selling all of your private information and giving them access to everything, it's also the information and the algorithms that the AI require in order to study you, to create the matrix system that allows them to navigate you and herd you, which creates the, future timelines, which the predictive programming in these shows are showing you is going to happen. That's what they're using this stuff for. They're gaining all of this information so that they can create and know how to move you and sway you, just like Facebook's been doing forever with their disgusting emotional manipulation. I won't touch Facebook. I can't stand it. As soon as I open up Facebook, I immediately feel an imposition of AI trying to access my energetic field. So I'll just put that warning out there for those of you who aren't aware of that. I feel Insta is a little bit more neutral, but all of these social media platforms, they're used to siphon information and codes. And so that's one thing in which you can start doing to assist yourself more, above writing the actual places, the I do not consents, and sending those in. What can you start to opt out of? Amazon's a huge problem. I no longer use Amazon. Their convenience is a massive issue, guys. So I'm going to invite you to look at everything in your life that you do because of convenience. And now, because of convenience and how big it is, maybe it's $5 cheaper. Okay. Is it worth it in the long run? Because this is the problem. All of that stuff is set up. It's more convenient, it's more affordable, and it's got all of the power. So I'm going to challenge you to start withdrawing yourself from certain things that you don't have to have, or have it in that way, or have it for that price point, that are feeding the issues. Because, at a certain point, we have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. In any platforms that you find that you perceive is a better option, please feel free to share it so that we can do our research around it and see if that suits us. I am going to add to either this coming e-newsletter this week or next week something that I've ordered and I'm going to be using to assist myself in regard to the Wi-Fi. I can't mention it here because it's illegal, but if you would like that information, please go to worldpeaceprojects.global and sign up for my free e-newsletter, and you will receive that article when I put that out, whether it's this week's or next week's, okay? And I'll read through a couple more questions and then I'm going to get out of here. But while I'm doing that, I'll just let you guys know, I have, because I'm currently in Canada and they've got a better, their currency is weaker than the US dollar, and because of what's going on, I put my prices at a low. I'm now at $100 an hour for a session. So I highly invite you guys to try out my sessions. If you've been following me for years and you haven't yet had a session, please support me in that way. And also, I would love for you to experience how I do shadow work, how deep it can go. If you haven't had this type of experience, we're accessing spirit and soul, I would love for you to experience it. And we can go as deep as you want, okay? Dig up as much as you want. Clarify a lot of things. The work is fabulous. And if you haven't tried it, I'd love for you to understand how these videos are just barely scratching the surface of what I do. Okay, so let me get back to some of your comments. Oh, Tracy says the horror films that are coming out are next level. I can't even watch horror films. I don't watch any. I'm really sensitive around what I call the death culture consciousness. So anything violent and all of that, I can't do. Okay, if you guys have any questions, maybe go pop them in right now. Otherwise, I'll start to wrap up here. Tracy says, I'll be making an appointment soon. You have done sessions with me and I highly recommend Chloe. Thanks, Tracy. I appreciate that. Debbie, you guys are talking about the red orbs. So some of the red orbs are not on the up and up. So challenge them when you see them. The blue, the purple, even the black can be very loving, but some of the red are they're questionable. So if you're seeing a red orb, just maybe, extra run your filters around them. All right. So I think that's about it, guys. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you coming in. Again, go ahead and sign up for my free e-newsletter, worldpeaceprojects.global. I am so grateful for your participation, and I'll see you guys next week. Take care. Bye.